All right, I've got 6:30, so let's get this started. I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm Jeff Kessler. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, and most of you I know, some of you I don't, and we may not know everyone, so let's just go around the room real quick.
PJ Lovely, Recreation Director.
Larry Flint, Chair of the Rec Advisory Committee.
Kim Gaddis, same.
Christy Whipple. I'm not sure what my job is. Am I on the advisory committee?
I don't know you're on the
She
community
has to
center.
sign her up.
Yeah, she's been on it.
Rick Rhoda, Rec Advisory.
Hillary Halleck, I'm on the committee.
Community center.
Same.
All right, and the two in the back,
You guys,
introduce yourselves.
what's your favorite color? I like long lots of leaves.
So we have, and Ken.
Sorry.
All right, and up front, taking notes.
Herb Teller, Board of Selectmen representative to this rec advisory.
All right, a couple years ago, we had a community center committee get together, and I think we could say in record time, they worked through some feasibility studies, came up with a proposed location down across the street from Meadow Park, and worked with a firm out of Vermont, Redloaf, to come up with a plan for a community center that would fit down in the same lot as the Little League field, while keeping the Little League field in place. And just for some historical perspective, I just want to read some things out of the Newport Master Plan from 2012. Talking about, and this is on page 92, you can also find the master plan on the town website if you want to read it yourself. Recreation Department. Newport provides its citizens with an outstanding range of well-organized recreational activities and opportunities. Citizens clearly consider the Recreation Department as one of the town's jewels. The department functions in an outstanding manner despite severe economic constraints and a dilapidated building. Due to its long-standing commitment to recreational needs of the people, the town provides over 90 programs consisting of both active and passive recreational pursuits available to all age groups, from toddlers to senior citizens, on a year-round basis. Over 50% of the community's youth are served by one of the town's recreation department programs, etc., etc. Going on to the next page, let's see, goes on further to say, the Recreation Department has a limited paid staff and relies heavily upon its over 200 volunteers to coach, assist, referee, and provide manual labor for facility maintenance and upkeep. The Recreation Department has been the grateful recipient of many material donations from individuals and businesses in Newport. Public support for this department indicates the value and sense of community it helps reinforce. With the growing popularity of the programs offered by the Recreation Department comes heavy use and sometimes overuse of town recreational facilities. This level of success is challenging because it forces the department staff to find ways to meet demand, either through expanding existing facilities or looking for opportunities to utilize public resource. An ongoing effort at the time of this master plan in 2012 is renovation and expansion or relocation of the Newport Community Center, home to the Recreation Department. The 1995 master plan identified the need for a new facility. However, nothing has been done to replace the building that has housed the Recreation Department for the last 40 years. The present facility is an old armory that was not designed for recreational purposes. As a victim of their own success, the present facility has worn out its lifespan. The building is aging and fundamentally over capacity. Goes on to say, in addition to a new facility, the Recreation Department is desperately in need of both gymnasium and outdoor space. And it talks about the available school spaces that we currently have. And it goes on to talk about the inadequacy of the green spaces back in 2012. But I'm reading that because back in 2012, it was recognized that the current rec center is worn out and I think, as it said, dilapidated, and it made reference to the 1995 master plan, where the consensus was that the building was basically worn out and in need of either complete renovation or replacement. And here we are in 2021. We had a proposal done in 2019, and at the time we took it to town meeting, and it, I think we were sort of hurried because everything was last minute. We didn't have the time to promote and educate citizens as to the continuing deterioration of the current rec center. And so this community center committee, I'd like to get it looking again at confirming that what Breadloaf came up with for the community center committee 2 years ago is still relevant. It still would fit our needs going forward into the future, and to look at mainly making sure we can educate the people in town who would benefit from it, or who have kids or grandkids who would benefit from it, to go determining how do we educate our citizens as to the state of what our current facility is and the benefits of a new center, through new programs, being able to serve more kids than we currently can with our existing center. And I would like this group to look at how we move forward with that. There is some people question, do we bring it forward this town meeting year, or do we wait a year? People make good arguments on either side. The school is going to be looking at a renovation bond for the tech center, which they are online to get 75% reimbursement of the cost, which they seriously can't pass up. People say if we bring forward a bond issue the same year, people may say, well, I'll vote for none of them if you guys think I am made of money. So some people say we should wait. I've had other people say, if it's that critical, but you can wait, is it really that critical? And looking at financing, neither project, either a new community center or the renovation and expansion at the tech center, neither of those projects would be seen on the tax rate until after the projects are done. So both projects we're looking at least probably 2 or 3 years down the road before the taxpayers would start seeing an impact. And you could say, well, let's wait a year because people don't want to vote for two tax increases in 1 year. But both would involve some bonding, which would basically require taxpayers to pay over several years, so there's going to be a bunch of overlap there. It's a question of, first, I think we need to be able to, come on in, take a seat, and, whether we feel it, I guess the first question is, do we really need a new center, or is the one we have going to serve us for the foreseeable future? And if it's not, how do we let people know why it won't and why we need a new center? So, I guess.
Interference from this thing. This one over here.
Happened as soon as I walked in, didn't it?
Yeah.
Happened as soon as I walked in.
No.
So I don't know.
Well, you did make it worse.
PJ, do you want to comment, or?
Well, whether we need a new facility? Well, no question.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking to the future of Newport and serving, say, the next 40, 50 years, like the current one is served.
Right. Well,
Outstanding.
The roof on the rec center, the current rec center is dilapidated, not dilapidated, but it's unsafe, so to speak. That was a 2011 report on the roof. They did fix it at that time, but it's band-aided, and it's 10 years later just for the roof. The structure itself, while old, grungy looking, it's solid because it's brick, so it's built to withstand a lot. But I mean, it's tough. The last 2 years with the COVID, our programs have gone down a little bit numbers-wise to be expected. So like we're not bursting out of the seams presently as we were 2 years ago. But we will be bursting out of the seams. A lot of new people are moving into town, asking about community rec centers, community spaces and things to do for the kids. And I show them what we do have, and it's impressive in our minds, from the cities they're coming from, it's not as much as what they're used to. They have a program for everything in some of the bigger cities. We don't quite offer a program for every person. A new community center would help with that, because you can get more space. And the biggest thing is our space. Our space needs are the biggest need. A gymnasium where you can do two things at once in. It's pretty simple. A place where you can watch your kids participate in those facilities. A place to change. Those are the small list of things that always been on my mind since 1995 when I first started some of these committees. And to this day, those are the biggest needs, is space. Not necessarily a certain space, but multi-purpose space where you can do more than one activity at once and change that activity depending on whatever the trend might be.
And just to throw out some numbers, I think a month or so ago when we last had a smaller group gather, at the time we had, I guess, the not to exceed costs from Breadloaf for construction in 2020, which was about 6.5.
6.9.
It was $6.5 million in round numbers. And the plan in 2020, this was for the facility that Breadloaf proposed and we accepted, and all this is on the town website, was going to be for a new community center with a total of 19,720 square feet. Our current center, the rec center, is about 8,500 square feet, so it'd be more than twice as big. And the gymnasium alone in the new community center would be bigger than the entire rec center right now. The current, they were proposing about 8,700 square foot gym space. As PJ said, you could have two groups doing things at the same time. And as I said, the total cost in 2020 was about $6.5 million. And the way the Board of Selectmen at the time proposed it, we were looking to raise $3 million in donations. And we had commitments for about a little more than half of that, about 1.7 million at the time. And so we were looking at a bond vote and cost to taxpayers of around $3.5 million. And because people asked, we also asked Breadloaf to look at renovating the current rec center, bringing it up to, and when you do any sort of major renovation, you also have to bring it up to code, which means it would have to be ADA accessible and all that. And renovating the current rec center where it is, pretty much keeping the same footprint, came up to $2.9 million. So, raising, putting up a new center with twice the space, getting half the money from donations, and I'll say only costing $3.5 million out of pocket versus renovating the current center, which is half the size, for $2.9 million. I mean, it seemed like an easy answer to me. And I think certainly going forward, replacing the current center is the way to go. And
If I could ask,
yes.
What is the current budgeted maintenance cost for that rec center in year 1, year 2, moving forward?
The current one or a new one?
For boiler, et cetera, what do those costs weighed against renovation costs, replacement costs?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
If we're townspeople are gonna ask, why don't we just continue what we have and fix it up? Okay, without expanding it. So if you gotta replace the roof, what's that economic value? Is that 300,000, 400,000? Because at some point you reach tip over where your maintenance costs force you to either do a wholesale renovation or replace. So if you had those values in hand, you could enhance your argument.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
You know, if we replace the roof and then 5 years down the road, we have to, the condition of the building requires replacement or such, you know, it's almost like, why spend that much on a roof, you know that's on, you're not gonna get the 20 years or so life out
Right,
of
I mean, if you're gonna spend $1 million in 2 years doing maintenance of some type,
it. Mhm.
you'd be better off to either do a replacement or new, where, you know, say a new, you're gonna build a 20 to a 30-year building.
Well,
You know,
you're
with
gonna
minimal
be,
maintenance.
you're gonna be building a,
So-
right,
Okay, so you gotta weigh that out.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
also
it's-
the heating system.
Right,
yeah, I don't have those numbers, and that's something we can, you know, certainly, a lot of it would be an estimate, we could get a cost for a roof or so.
right, but that would allow you to weigh
Right.
to the interested parties, oh, just leave it alone, go along the way you're going. You say, okay, that
Yeah.
comes at an expense, and this is what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you
So to
be
make
taking
the
up the
sale.
code too, if you're in there?
There's some tipping point where if you exceed so much work, I would think, but Ken, you probably
It's
know.
usually more than 50% of the value,
Yeah.
you know, of the building at that point.
Yeah.
And then that tips you in, or, you know, if you're doing a front entrance, then they're gonna make you bring the whole handicap ramp, all that up to code. So yes, there is a code-driven.
Our experience has suggested 25% of your square footage kicks you into a total rebuild, or total compliance requirement.
We had a number for renovation costs on, were those broken down into what was gonna cost what?
Keeping in mind that's 2 years old data.
Yeah, actually, we got up, the cost of renovation of the current center 2 years ago was 2.9 million. They did give us updated information, and they estimated over 2 years about an 8% increase in cost. I don't have the printout for the rec center, but I think it increased to about 3.1 million.
You know, escalations went from 3% a year to about 8%. And that's if you can find somebody to build it.
Yeah.
Over the next 2 years.
Well, what Breadloaf gave us dated, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, I'm sorry, September 30th, showed an increase in cost from 2020 to 2022 of an 8% increase, or 421,000. Basically bringing the total cost today of a new building to just under $7 million, which I think may be a little low, and I would anticipate, even if we do get approval to build it, the time to get everything out to bid, get it built, you'd be looking at least another $500,000 in cost. But at the time, 2 years ago, Breadloaf basically gave us a not to exceed, this was a not to exceed cost, is that right, Hunter?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that package, I thought that was fine, but yeah, looking forward,
Yeah,
I mean, labor's at a premium.
Right.
If anybody's got a window to do it, material costs,
Yeah.
labor availability, so if you don't have labor, your schedule lengthens, that is an automatic driver to cost.
mhm,
You know, if you go a quarter of your schedule longer, then your budget's gotta reflect that number as well, so that's what's gonna drive
yeah.
that number.
But
And the renovation is in the same, walking the same line with that. Because you're gonna have the same type of a contractor to do a renovation expansion. Whereas if you're doing upkeep, roof, something like that, you hit somebody's window, you're not gonna spend as much overall, but it is gonna be a hard impact on
Yeah.
that.
So looking at the needs for a recreation and community center here, looking forward, what is the feeling? Do we feel it's in the best interest of the town to put up a new center, or keep, say, perhaps band-aiding the current rec center and not knowing just what kind of return on investment we get on those Band-Aids? Because,
How is it that we're, so I'm just doing some math, this is my 8th year being involved with the new rec center proposal. So are you asking us to go back to where we were before we had Breadloaf and determine if we need a new center or to renovate the old one? Because we paid them a lot of money to show us that we needed a new center.
right,
So are we back to, do we need a new center or are we fixing up the old one? Is that where we are?
I would hope we're not going back, but I think we have to be able to answer that question when we get asked it, if we're looking to move forward. What do we need for the community? Can renovating the current center in its current footprint meet the needs or the desires of the community? Can we serve after-school programs, all the evening programs or such, adult programs that could utilize it?
Not at the size it's at. A renovation of the community center now would have to expand in size.
Right. And that was one of the 3 design concepts we looked at. And that came in more expensive than a new center
Right.
where proposed down by Meadow Park.
But Jeff, doesn't this come back to your initial suggestion that we can renovate the existing facility for $3 million, or we can, take into consideration the donations we have, we can double or more than double
Right.
The size of our existing facility and get a brand new facility that has lower maintenance, code compliant, and will carry us 20 or 30 years into the future for the same amount of money.
Right.
But it doesn't.
Right. I mean, that's
I'm with you. The decision seems fairly straightforward.
right. And that's based upon a complete update of the current center, the cost of that. But as Ken, you said, can we just replace the roof and kick this can down the road, or are we just adding to the final cost when we all have to face it?
What I was trying to get across is you need to, for the decision maker on the vote day, you need to put those numbers out there to say, if we continue to limp along, in year 1, we're gonna spend $500,000 worth of roof and this. In year 2, we're gonna put a new boiler in there.
Yep.
And you can
Yeah.
do that for lawn maintenance, and you can show that, whereas you can, and then you apply that against, okay, well, we can build a new rec center, we can apply those dollars as soon as we get into it,
Yeah.
towards this.
And we have some of that in the building study that was done
We
in
have all that,
2017.
we have all that data, and I think his point is well taken. But, you're kicking the can just a little bit down the road, down the road, down the road. And, as a consumer, at some point, I would think the consumer is gonna look at this and say, look, we're just throwing good money after bad, because at any moment,
Right.
we're gonna have a catastrophic failure there, or an OSHA inspection, or something that's going to trigger it all. And then we're all gonna be standing around looking at each other saying, we just spent $1 million over the last 3 years doing stuff with that building, and now it's all for naught.
Yeah.
Because it won't make the building any more valuable than it is today.
And there's 18 pages on the rec center and the building study guide, which is on the website too, and it's all broken down, into a lot of detail. I don't know if it's worth perhaps trying to put that into some sort of executive summary as to major expenses coming up over the next 5-10 years if we keep going on that building. A lot of it talks to, this is in fair condition, will need to be replaced, and it costs so much per square foot, but it's hard to conceptualize something when you're adding up a lot of costs per square foot.
Right, I mean, it's almost a marketing plan, or the selling the new rec center.
Right, and that's what.
That's what you gotta do.
That's what, moving forward, we need to have a plan for marketing, the investment in a new center versus, keeping, the old one.
So should the old one even be an option? To renovate the old one shouldn't be an option, it should just be a marketing tool to say that
Right,
if
it
we
is-
dump money into this, then it's taking money from that essentially.
You should go all in with whatever you can.
Right.
Right,
Whatever
to me,
decision you make.
it's not. Okay, but there are people who may feel that, well, you said in 1995 it needed to be replaced. So maybe we can get another 10 years out of it, but are we,
Maybe you should do tours
Or do the video
of the
like
current, of the current rec center to show them
Yeah.
that that's not the case. Show them the rotting windowsills in the basement, like where we do,
Windows fixed.
it's ridiculous.
At what
If
expense?
you walked in the building, you would know we need a new rec center.
oh yeah, and I remember from, I guess, one of the last times, I think it was old school PE I took part in, if you're running close to the edge of the Basketball court, you better stop before you impale yourself on those little climbing hook.
Right.
Can
John.
I speak? Hi, just because I'm whipping the cameras around, if I could just throw in my 2 cents right now. I think you've already done the work, and people have said, really, we got to move forward with a new center. The leaving it as it is it's been too long, it's outlived its usefulness. So I think the studies have already been done, and I think selling a new center is really what called for. However, I'm also of the opinion that we are stuck with, we don't want to divide a vote. And if we've got a $14 million project that the town may end up, at the school, that the town may end up only spending $1 million on, that's good money. You know, that's real value this year. And if we lose that option and we don't get the 75% state funding, then then the vocation center ends up being just kind of rolled over like the rec center has for another 30 years. So that's the rock and the hard place. But I don't think you really need to move back and say we've got to renovate this whole place, because it's definitely out of date.
And I think that school dynamic, I mean, I don't know, as a town, or Hunter in your group, do you meet with the school to figure out, hey, it's the same tax dollar. Okay? It's the same kids, okay?
Yeah.
Why are we infighting? Whether it be fields, buildings, whatever it is, it's all for the same common good. And let's put our dollars in the right place.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a legitimate, how do I phrase this?
Conundrum.
I've seen this throughout my entire career. People somehow in their heads think it's an either or. And if you put them both on the warrant at the same time, they say, well, I can't vote for both of these. Where they don't understand, as Jeff mentioned, that the debt service doesn't kick in for 2 or 3 years down the road. And it's overlapping debt, so whether you did it in year one and in year 3 the other, it's going to share 17 or 23 years of overlapping debt. So it really doesn't make any difference, except for in the intervening years, the price of this thing has gone up. The wastewater treatment plant is a good example. When I first got here, it was 9 or 10 million. There's been some changes in design requirements, but a lot of the cost can be attributed to inflation, because now it's 18 million. And you get to numbers like this, and they start growing in really significant and meaningful ways. That rec center is going to price itself out of your reach pretty soon. And then it'll just continue going the way it's going until it hits the catastrophic failure. And then you're going to be forced to do something, and then everybody's going to scream in the owls, why didn't we do this before? Now it's going to cost more money because we have to do it under duress, and we have to close the building. Where are we going to put the kids for the next 2 years? And all that horrible, unfortunate fallout will occur. But I think you have done the due diligence and the homework. And I just can't see that it makes any sense to renovate a building that at its core has lived out its days. You can put it's lipstick on a pig, with all due respect to the building. I mean, you can put a new roof on, you can put new windows in, you can slap some paint on it, but it's still the same fundamental building, right?
But running a hypothetical, say, the school vote comes up, it gets shot down for the CTE center. Then, by rights, we should line this up for a vote for the rec center for the next year, but they're gonna limp in and overlap because they're gonna beat you to the punch, and their vote is months ahead of the town vote.
So maybe the approach is to take some of the money that we have access to and maybe start, I don't want to get ahead of myself or anybody else here, but maybe you start a marketing campaign to put all this stuff together and get it out there where people can see it and understand it on a regular basis. And maybe you consider a special town meeting. It separates it from the regular annual meeting, lets people vote on the school issue all by itself, so that there's no fear that there's competition between the two, and do a special town meeting. But because I have very firm reason to believe that if we don't do something on this project in the very near future, that you're going to lose the lion's share of your support, your financial pledges and donations that are on the table now. And then you're gonna be like, oh my God, we couldn't get it done when we had 3 million, now we only got 700,000 left, and what are we gonna do now? And that'll give people a reason not to vote on it, because, oh my God, I wouldn't vote on, they didn't vote in favor of it when you had 2.5 million, now you only got 1 million, so I'm definitely not voting for it now. It's not a deal anymore.
So if we look at it as a 100% package of both projects, and look at it that way, and look at what the discounts are going to be for either one of them, who's going to raise money for this, maybe it's a whole town, it's a whole town school / project for absolutely everybody. The almost $14 million for the school, with the 75%, actually they've already reduced it to 11. So the 75% is going to leave us with the possible federal funding of $2 million, is going to leave us with about $1.5 million to $2 million. We might be, if we have to bond that, it's not that large, but if we can reduce that with some fundraising and other things like that, then that might not be that big a nut. And throwing that in the pool with the rec center, as saying, well, here's the overall amount for both of these things, and this is going to improve the school, the kids, the adult recreation, the economic growth of the community as a whole project.
To John's point, I think if you take the debt service of both projects and put them together, because a lot of taxpayers will look at it that way, it's less than you've seen budgetary changes in a number of recent years. I mean, it really, it's not minimizing, it's a lot of money, but it doesn't surpass what kind of changes in the tax rate you've seen just on swings in operating budgets, much less any capital. And you're going to get facilities out of this, whether it's the tech center or the community center, they're going to serve you for the next 30 years. I mean, what other things can you point to and say, well, that's good, I got that, it's going to be here for the next 30 or 50 years. I'm getting something out of that, stuff that you can touch,
I mean, I guess
feel.
back to the point of the school going first, I mean, they have blinders on to the rest of the town. They're worried about the school and their budget and their fields and their usage and everything. They could care less about what the rest of the town side does. Because they're essentially an independent organization. They're not a town organization, and the way they operate. So somehow beating them to the punch, getting ahead, making this a more beneficial project is the way to sell it.
Yeah, but that's, the renovation at the school, the tech center is critical to the community too. And
What, is it any more critical than what we're talking about here? Not to this group.
Well, I think it's only critical because you have a window that's going to open and close. It's a one-shot.
Right, but if you weigh the two out on a scale, like I said,
Yeah, well,
this group could sit here and say, we are way more
if
critical
the
than
town-
what that is.
Well, that may be. I can't argue that point one way or the other, but the school's funding opportunity is a one-time thing. It comes around once every 20 or whatever, 30 years. And if the town does not take advantage of that funding mechanism, it will get passed to another community and we'll have to wait our turn again. Now, that's another decision that the community needs to determine. Is that okay or is that not okay? I don't know, but 75% matching money is pretty attractive.
plus also, I know with the business manager they have there, I mean, he's looked very hard and he's very confident of federal assistance there too.
We've heard a lot of that over the last 22 and 23 years, so.
Well,
I don't call that a great defense, Jeff, sorry.
Well, actually, the current...
The school and economics are a failed class.
Yeah.
So that's that conversation right there.
So can we use some of the money that we have for marketing? Can we hire a marketing firm to come in and do this?
I think that there's 2 or 3 donations that if we went to those sources and said, look, we've kind of run into dead space here because of COVID, we took a couple of years off, would you consider allowing us to hire a marketing firm for 20 grand to come in and do a program for us? I suspect they might. I can't guarantee that because I haven't had that conversation because I don't feel at liberty to go down that path.
Also, 2 years ago, we did not have Christine Benner here as our economic development coordinator, and the grants she's gotten for other projects and all, and I think if she got turned loose on grants for the community center, I think she would definitely, if anything is out there, she would locate it and at least we would have a shot at it. She's also heard from a couple of businesses in town, big businesses in town, about donating to the center if it goes forward. People who didn't want to hear about it 2 years ago. So I think we're getting some more interest in our business community as to the benefit of having, a new community center here to support their employees.
One of the problems that 2 years ago was that there was communications of what the project was about. People didn't realize the Little League field was going to be turned around and benefited. It was going to eliminate the present community center, the 6-bay garage put in. It was all under the same price tag.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people voted against it. Oh, you're taking my Little League field away. All right, the field. And the problem was it was benefiting it and changing it and improving it. And again, it comes down to communications.
And it's important to bring that group in who will benefit or may feel they won't benefit from it, to educate them and make sure that this is the plan for that field and how it will improve the field and such.
It's all based on communications. Always has been. And then we live in silos. And basically, I do all the healthy aging groups, and they tend to, with various agencies of healthy, and the group, the Alliance of Healthy Aging, is trying to take these people out of silos and saying it's benefiting the entire state community. UNH is the biggest silo there is, if you ever dealt with them, each department. So, and the school is not. Yeah, they think they're a silo, the town thinks they're a silo, but we're a community. We have $1 that comes out of the taxes that pays for both of it. And that's a matter of educating, letting people know, oh, I'm not, you hear people, oh, it's for the kids, all right? Well, we're kids, all right? We're just older. We're growing up. I tell people that I have a 99-year-old kid in my exercise class that comes and so forth is benefiting from the community center, and they have trouble getting in and out of the building, so it benefits them. But it's a matter of communications, and Christy's right. Christy's built her business on communications, and that's the key to the whole thing. It's getting to people, and if people have an objection, is to find out what their objection is and straighten it out. Well, we're going through it right now with masks and vaccinations.
I think that's where a marketing firm is going to come in handy, because I know you said it felt like it was rushed, but it wasn't. We did feasibility studies, we did surveys, we went around and talked to different groups, we went to see the Little League people, we went to their meetings and talked to them. So we need somebody from outside who we can say, these are all the things that we did do, these are all the places we could go, and help us sell it, because this group, we know to do what we already did. We don't know what else.
By the way, Jeff, when I was here, the 1980s master plan, the number one need was the community center that I put in at the time.
I mean, a good example of selling it was watching a select board meeting from a few weeks ago, where one of the new members of the select board was anti-putting the rec center down at Meadow Park just because he hadn't seen the program.
Right.
And once the program got exposed, wait a minute, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
So, but
It's the marketing and answering questions, and being able to talk with people who have concerns and questions and seeing if you can answer their questions or such.
I mean, the other thing from buy-in perspective, I remember last time, 2 years ago to the vote, we didn't have 100% buy-in across the board of selectmen. And that's a doom right there. You gotta if you're gonna go, you gotta be all in, fully supported, right, wrong, or indifferent, and you gotta sell the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't be split at all.
I think a marketing firm is a good way to do it. Because I see that as being one of my tasks, and I'm not probably particularly good at that point of selling. I don't sell myself that well, I don't sell the department that well. A marketing firm can help sell it, because I know what we do is extensive and it's heartfelt, and we do a ton for the community, but we don't brag about what we do, and that particularly is my flaw.
People involved in your programs only see their little, say, silo of the program.
Right.
They don't realize everything else going.
Right.
The marketing firm can, say, enlighten people or show that, yes, you're here for your program from 5 to 6, 3 days a week. But this group is leaving when you're coming in, this group's coming in when you're leaving.
Right,
And these are the groups that can't leave.
yeah, it's all different groups and affecting them positively all day long.
Jeff alluded to the fact that we felt rushed the previous time that we brought this forward. Do we have enough time to pursue a marketing company plan and get this
Well,
done?
you know, it's not necessarily my area of expertise, but I would say if you don't start it now, then you're probably doomed for the next, season. Meaning now is like I start hiring people this month.
By being rushed, I meant we didn't have numbers from Bread Loaf until like January.
Right.
So it was only like
We
a
have
couple
certainly
months.
a lot of data.
Yeah.
And I think if you find the right marketing gang, you can download, the whole pile.
Yeah.
That I think that they can get going in, November, December, and sell it all winter long, and you might have a different outcome. But remember, the vote was 48%, I think, as I recall.
What do we need?
60. So for the first time out, that's not unusual. The town voted 3 times on renovating the police department. 3 times. So that's not at all uncommon, here or in other communities.
Well, it was 2 or 3 times for the tech center initially, and that was just to purchase the land. The rest of it was
Yeah.
given from the state.
Right.
So sometimes it takes a couple of times before people realize you're serious about it.
Some thing to consider in the marketing thing. I mean, you're gonna do the marketing, fine, great. Do you do the marketing, get feelers out, get some feedback before you make a decision when to go? Or do you go out with marketing and get feedback preparing to go to a May ball or a special meeting vote of some other date? Something to think about and.
Yeah.
and
I'd say a
study that.
special meeting would be hard to pull off, because you gotta get court approval for that. And that generally is just for an emergency, and, putting up a new building that's been in your last 3 master plans doesn't sound like an emergency, probably to most judges.
Right. Like, I get it. I'm just trying to frame the
Yeah.
context of how to
It's-
move
I-
along,
My desire is to do it this year. I know some people are concerned about the optics of both projects the same year. I think marketing it is going to be critical, whether it's this year or if it gets put off a year, to build consensus and understanding in the community as to why it's needed.
Hunter, do we have to do the same procedure that we did when we picked Bread Loaf? It took a long time to.
No, we're good to go. Pick
But
up right where you
but
left
to
off.
hire a marketing firm, do we have to go through the whole putting it out and then we get?
No, as a matter of fact, ideally, we'd be using non-municipal money, so we'd be exempt from
You just hire
procurement
who?
kind of thing. And with
But
the
you
board's
guys did
support-
good with Bread Loaf, I think.
How about finding out if the donors are still in?
Yeah, that would be good information, but I personally feel, literally, that if you don't jump on this in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, you're going to be doomed to pull it off this year. And again, not to go into any great details, but I feel very, very confident that you're going to lose 2/3 of your support in 5 months. Never to be seen again.
So
As
is
it
that,
was said to me.
is that a marketing dinner that somebody pulls off to say, are you still in? And, somebody reaching out and shaking hands and,
Yeah, we went over the list today, and my gut tells me that so you're gonna lose 2/3 in 5 months, no question about it. The rest of it, I think, is of a corporate enough nature, and as Jeff has mentioned, there's been a couple of there's been some new interest expressed by some of the companies in town that were kind of before, and they've changed their mind. So if you lose a little bit of that 1/3, then these guys might make it up. But if you lose the 2/3, I think you're doomed, because it's not a deal anymore. You know, you're not even at half. And,
Also, since the cost has gone up, probably at least $500,000, probably be closer to $1 million by the time we get to some sort of
you're gonna end
construction
up chasing
season.
your tail.
We need to up the amount we gather from donations to keep as much as we can to keep the tax impact.
We'll never catch up
Yeah.
if we don't, like, pull the trigger on this.
So, any other inputs, questions, comments?
What do you need from this group? Do you need us to
Yeah.
vote hire a marketing firm?
I don't know if we're really in an official committee or not, or,
Except it's not
I mean, what's the consensus of this right here, right?
Well, it's not like.
Sounds like we consensed to move forward.
Yeah.
Well,
Correct.
and you're thinking same building, is there a reduction, can you reduce the cost?
Right, well, I was gonna say the same thing. Is there any way we can downsize the building a little? and
Even
make
if
it
we
a little
downsize it, the
cheaper?
cost's gonna be the same, because everything's gone up,
Proportionally.
right?
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
we'll keep the cost at what we're at, rather than adding the 500 or 700,000.
you'd have to go back to engineering and then things would change. And that would really.
Soft costs would go up accordingly.
I don't know about your experience, but when you pay less, you generally get less. And you've already kind of shortchanged
Yeah.
yourselves going forward. I promise you, you're gonna walk in the door and you're gonna look around and say, we paid how much for this?
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't do that. I can't believe we didn't add that.
And referring back, I think, Hunter, you mentioned the police department took like 3 bonds or so.
3 votes.
You know, when they were looking at a new location for the police department, I remember being in a meeting with one of the people on the committee there, and they said, and this is talking about where they are now, it's like, we looked at that place and we discarded it right away because it was just, it listed why it wouldn't work. And that's where they ended up. They basically cut cost, reduced the project, and went into a used building.
Cost doesn't save you,
And
cut
I
doesn't save you
think,
money.
my feeling, and from talking with Paul Brown about it at some point, what they saved up front by downsizing and going into a second-hand building and renovating and making do and all this stuff, they've more than spent in maintenance on that building since, so.
And renovations that they've done all in one.
Right. In continuing costs that you don't see because they're part of the yearly budget. I think you can cut costs to the point where you're still, it may not be a bond payment, but you're having to pay maintenance and all.
And that's the thing about the current facility, you know, over the next whatever time period, you're gonna spend $3 million there. The building's gonna be exactly the same size as it is today. You might have a fresh coat of paint on it and some new windows or something, but it's gonna be functionally unable to do any more than what it's doing today.
And
As opposed to putting $3 million into a building that's 2.5 times the size, that will carry you forward for the next 30 to 50 years without any real troubles. And you get all the expanded capabilities, functionality, and ADA compliance, and it's bright, sunny, and, you know, people enjoy being there.
Sounds like a marketing plan.
Out of curiosity, what does happen if the roof caves in tomorrow? Does the town have the liberty to say, forget it, we just close the wreck?
what Hunter
Or are
would
we
do, he would
forced
come to the
into it?
Board of Selectmen and said, we've had to close the rec center because the roof caved in. The engineers are looking to see if the building's safe, we'll get a cost, and that's, you know, they'll probably have someone give an estimate to repair it, and of course, you know, it'll probably be like, yeah, the roofers are available in 6 months, and we'll look at the cost in the meanwhile.
Well, the insurance cost would be 20% of it.
We,
Thinking you're out 2 years.
you know,
trying to get
we
the
are
building.
without the building, and at that point, the Board of Selectmen may say, do we invest, you know, 500,000 or whatever a roof is, to put a new roof on the inadequate facility? I mean, that's sort of my concern. You know, I hope we get a new center up before we're forced to evacuate the old one.
Well, and then in the meantime, you got middle schoolers taking over the library, you've got, little kids running around the street, you've got Larry's
99-year-old lady staying home because she doesn't have any place to exercise, but
Come right in this room.
On that, but, that's another good point that I don't think a lot of people think about, though, is that every year that goes by, you're denying another generation, another class of kids of the opportunity to have been in a
Yep.
more robust,
Structured.
fulfilling environment.
Yeah.
And they had to, you know, duct tape and bubble gum it along. And, you know, what's that worth?
I mean,
I
heaven
don't know.
forbid, if we build a new center and it's so popular and we have so many kids here that we have to hire someone, another staff person to service those kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
How great would it be to have families actually moving in because we have a big renovation?
I've seen that.
And that's- and
That's
that's-
not just when your kids are in there, or I'm saying, I'm not using it personally. It's people, there's so many people that have moved in from out of state that are looking at the communities, do I want to be here because, oh, they have a great community center, or they're providing these things.
Yeah.
It's also
I've
for
seen
the
it
real
happen.
estate.
I've had parents in places elsewhere come to me and say, you know, the reason why we decided to move to this town was because of all the amenities.
I can-
and the
yeah, I can attest to
recreation
that, too.
program, you know. It
And-
really is true, and those are the kind of people you want living in the town.
Yeah,
and
so,
honestly,
yeah.
that's
And they have
sort of what Hunter has been doing with sidewalks and streets and other things, you know, just fixing up the infrastructure, so when you drive into Newport, it's like, this looks good, it's
It's
not,
like somebody cares.
Welcoming.
yes,
That's
yeah.
all it says.
And that can help, you know, long-term, and I think some of it started during COVID and people moving up here from urban areas. It's driven up the market value of our homes, and hopefully at some point that'll translate into a higher assessed value when the property gets reassessed. And because the town's working on the same amount of money year to year, we should be able to balance the increased assessed value with the lower tax rate and still collect the same amount of money from everyone, but everyone feels better because the rate's lower and they feel like they're getting more for their more value in their house. And new community center, I mean, the work we put into the Opera House, you know, all these things, you know, increase the, I guess, the,
In fact, somebody
Quality of life.
yeah.
somebody told me that he lives in Washington, right, and he comes to Newport all the time, and didn't realize what we had at the Opera House. Right, and he's coming to different events here and so forth,
Yeah.
all the time.
It makes a difference, it really does. It equals the playing, it levels the playing field.
And I think at our next board meeting, next Monday, one thing you'll see is Hunter coming to us, well, actually it'll be a hearing for us to accept $2.8 million worth of grants that have come in over the past year, so we make a formal acceptance of that. And that's a broad range of things, but Hunter and Christine Benner, I mean, a lot of the grants they come in have been turned around to improve the infrastructure, the appeal of the town, and taking care of a lot of, you know, routine maintenance things. I think at this point, there's only probably like one municipal roof left in town that needs to be done. Everything else has a fairly new, you know, has a fairly new roof. Well, aside, okay. We haven't done that.
That's lipstick on a pig. We're not-
Okay, yes. One we don't want to
It's
do.
bad money.
But these are expenses that, you know, a lot of times you'll see on a warrant article or they're part of the town budget. You know, so much for, you know, we need to approve this warrant article to replace a roof here or a roof there. We've been getting grants for that. The feds have been paying for a lot of that. The roof on this building was just done along with the old courthouse next door. And some of that came out of a surplus we had because we had COVID money paying for other things, and some of it was grant. Hunter spent a lot of time arguing with the L-chip people about the color of roof shingles and stuff. It's like, but he finally convinced them to, you know, what the right color was here.
So can you procure grants prior to the vote to know what grant money you'd have coming in to be able to go towards?
Apply to the,
Potentially.
It would, you can apply for it, and it would be contingent, there may be contingencies, depending upon who's offering the grant money, their requirements differ. Just between different state agencies, the requirements are like night and day. Some are like, here's your money, enjoy. The other is like, we need to know what you're doing every.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
for
I'm just-
instance, where the town got $663,000 in what I refer to as GOFA, ARPA money. And that's money, it was from the stimulus package, American Recovery Act. And that particular grant is from all that, we have 31 grants running right now. There's several more in the pipeline. And of all of those, that is the least restrictive, least controlled, least bureaucratic. But they were very, very strict, because initially we said, wow, 660 grand, add that to the 2 million we got, we're 2,600,000, now today we'd be at 3 million, we're on 3, we got it. And they said, no, you can only use it on infrastructure, water, sewer, has to be bricks and mortar, infrastructure, utility, primarily utilities they really wanted us to use for water and sewer. So, that goes by the wayside, so you gotta wait for the next one.
And
Or look for the next one.
And certainly, we have a lot of ancient water and sewer pipes in town, so,
You don't want to talk about
Well, Meadow Park must need a new sewer, new water line.
Right,
What I've seen,
right,
so
right.
the
Pre-investment.
$90
Get it off the-
million is the price tag at the moment. 90 million.
So what are next steps? So
Yeah.
we want a marketing team. When are we meeting next?
Yeah.
Not that we're not happy to spend time with you all, but I think we're all kind of in agreement, right?
This group influences that group, who then turns around and gives me direction. We're good to go. And
For the
we
meetings
can-
next
we
week,
can-
so.
We can put a marketing group together with the rec, committee, and we can go to town, and you guys will be off and running in 2 or 3
So you
weeks.
meet next Monday. Do you need representatives from this group to come to that meeting Monday and talk to the selectmen?
Or some kind of a
Always like
What is
company.
this group?
Yeah.
or a written notice of a
What is
request,
this
or
group?
how do you want to phrase it so that it can get on the docket to go?
I'm gonna have a agenda item on the community center, and certainly members of this group can speak then.
Yep.
Do you need something in writing
Yeah.
to have the official request? Or
No.
just a verbal?
No,
or you good to go?
we'll put it on the agenda.
Is that about the first, Monday the first you're meeting?
Yeah.
Give us the direction, and we'll run.
November what?
Same time,
6:30.
6:30?
6:30.
November, what the meeting is.
November 1st, I would think.
Is the selectmen?
Yeah.
November 1 board, BOS.
November 1?
Yes, first Monday,
Okay.
day after Halloween. Bring your excess candy.
Sweeten up the pot.
Yes.
right.
I'll be here. I'll push it forward. I will.
So it'd probably be good once, does this group want to be involved in interviewing any marketing firm, or you want
Well, that's what I asked Hunter.
you want to
Like we
leave it
spent
to
hours
Hunter?
and hours and hours. If you guys, if it's
I'm
private money,
happy
just
to
do it.
that, but
Yeah.
in order for this to be effective, I got to, pedal to the metal.
Right away.
Or
So if you want to have 3 people come and sit with me while I call people all afternoon, and after 3 or 4 hours of calling, that's the one. That's the way we're going to have to do it.
Do you
You
want
can't do it yourself?
I can do it myself,
Or-
but if you want to do it.
Or
that way,
let me-
that's
let me
what I
put
can
this-
That's fine.
perhaps-
We don't have time to back up and write all kinds of
Exactly.
specifications, put it out for a
Do we
month,
want,
think
do
about
we
it.
want to,
Just do it.
does this
That's-
group
That's the only way it's going to get done.
prefer to let the Board of Selectmen and Hunter select the marketing firm? Mainly let Hunter do it.
Yeah, no offense to the Board of
All those in favor?
Selectmen, but
I
I'm
have
comfortable
a
with Hunter
committee
doing
here
it. I don't know how the rest
Well,
of the
it's
board
because
feels.
he works for us, so sometimes, people may get a hair sticking up or something, or
We can vote.
some input, but, and I would think, once Hunter has selected a firm, I would expect we would want their representative to meet with this group.
Yep.
And so maybe fairly,
Not their representative, we want their team to meet with this group. We want the 3 of
Yeah,
them, or the
it's gonna
5
have
of
to be on
them,
the run
not
for
the
the
one.
next
Okay.
Let's
Be on the
go,
run.
let's
All
do
right.
it.
This is not gonna be a thing where you think about it for a month, it's gonna be on the run,
So perhaps,
with all due respect,
say if
of course.
Hunter makes a selection, we try to meet with them within the next week or so after that selection, maybe, think you could do it in 2 weeks?
Yep.
So maybe we come back the second Monday, or is there a better night or
No.
to meet? On the assumption that we will have a marketing firm
As long as it's not
to meet with
Tuesdays and
us
Thursdays.
and understand just how we see them, what we feel needs to be marketed, and perhaps develop some points of contact among this group.
And I would propose that meeting be at the rec center so the marketing committee can see.
That works for me. Or you, or is it full up?
No,
We can,
not Mondays yet.
well, there's stuff going on, but we can meet right upstairs.
That's
too, or
even
something.
better if it's too
Yeah,
busy.
yeah,
it's
yeah, I would-
perfect.
yes.
Two little minor caveats to this is, you know, when we get into this, A, we find out that nobody's got any staff, and because they've all been COVIDized, and they're not available for the next 3 years, that could be, put a wrench into the works. Or two, because of our rapid response needs here, the costs go crazy. So I just wanted to tell you that those are two distinct, you know, upsets that might screw us up, but we'll find something.
This day's age, that's a possibility.
Well, the good thing is marketing can be done online, so
Right, yeah,
their ability to work at home, do things, so that should be an industry that we can make movement with.
yeah. But, you know, everybody's quitting their good jobs, so I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, just quit.
Now, if this was beginning of August, I'd suggest we have a booth at the Apple Pie Craft Fair, but it's not.
Yeah.
But there is what's it, night before Christmas?
Plus.
Back December 11th or something like that, I think. So it may be something we want to think about, or at least having the firm have some marketing stuff that could be handed out
Yep.
then, or maybe even a little display in the Opera House or something. And I think my feeling about marketing, you get your project in front of people every place you can.
Right.
Right.
I think we're gonna have to have multiple events.
Yeah, and I think it's
Time with the vote.
also important to have outreach, having, once we get the message down, so it's, I tend to ramble, and probably not the best one to give a concise and clear message, but once we get a message, perhaps meet with other groups in town that may have an interest, or, just are voting, everything
Or the
from
elevator talk.
the senior center to the athletic groups that use the fields, and even like Rotary, Lions, and whoever else.
We talked about that, to invite all of those groups to the meetings, because they were really
Yeah.
not informed at all what was happening.
And we did it, we went out,
Yeah.
we went out to all those
I
groups.
went to see
Yeah,
Could have been a communication within there.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. But it's, a lot of times, it's not just meeting them once, but it's repeating the message.
We need to recruit some of them to get on the team.
Well, that's, I think when the marketing firm comes
Yeah.
in, you hit them on the radio, you hit them on the TV, you hit them in the internet.
Same with the
You're
rec
on
center.
Facebook.
Every program you got,
Flyers.
send flyers home, hit
Well,
every parent,
that's
get all
preaching
that
to the
flyer.
choir, really. Those aren't the people that are voting against us, really.
Well,
those are-
yes, but if they get out, that every word.
No, I
hits
know,
how
and
many
that's what these
people,
guys have been doing
so on.
since 1995, apparently, but.
I had 100%
Yeah.
participation.
Right, like I said, but it's only, it's following other people in here.
We gotta hit that 60% mark, so every person that comes out to vote is critical.
And we need to let them know that, we need 60%, so that they're not like, well, they don't need me.
Right.
Enough people are gonna
Right.
come
No,
out.
no.
I think anyone who's been to any elections lately, my vote will count is just out the window.
Oh.
Things are so tight and close. Every vote counts.
Yes.
And it's important for everyone to get out. Whether they're for it or not, voting is a duty you all need to perform.
It's a privilege, actually.
And there'll be a little backlash, I'm presuming from the school, if we do go forward, talking to some of the teachers.
That's a matter of communication with them.
So marketing would have to.
I think I'll say again, the school project is also critical and very important.
Oh, yeah.
here.
Right, and I think we have said that. We,
Yeah.
we have right down the road, it said,
And it's
nothing's
both of
more
it.
important.
And it's
than
not
the
an either
Or.
or.
It's
It's
both.
not like, as I think I said and Hunter said, the cost for this is gonna overlap whether one's delayed a year or 5 years or whatever. I mean, but the return, I think the return on the investment, it's hard to put a number on now, but I think we would see it once it's here.
Let's get Jen Opalensky
So
to come.
one of the things, and
Get
one
her to come-
perspective
get on-
to look
get
at
on
this
the committee.
is that
I can talk to
the
her.
town of Newport is going to spend $3 million over some period of time, foreseeable period of time, on the recreation center. Which recreation center is the question? Do you want to invest that $3 million incrementally, with broken furnaces, having to put new roofs in, getting the place shut down because OSHA comes in and inspects us, rebuild, piecemeal? Or do you want to do what's naturally piecemeal for a new facility? Because you're going to pay over a 30-year bond in 30 installments, or you're going to pay 0 in year 1 at the rec center, you're going to pay $100,000 in year 2, maybe you pay nothing in year 3, you pay $500,000 in year 4. You're going to pay. You can't just say...
It's like an old car.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's right. So at some point, you're gonna say, look, do I wanna put my money into these repairs that makes my old car no more valuable than it is today? It's still an old car, but it's still running. Or do I want to invest it in a car that's more reliable, safer, faster, cleaner, more efficient, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But you're gonna spend the money. You can't say, I'm not gonna spend the money and save it. All you're doing is deferring it to another day, and you're gonna get it in lumps and chunks in the old facility. And in the new facility, it's gonna be a very systemic manner of payment, which in my opinion will probably disappear to the average taxpayer within a couple of years. The impact of that will just fade away. It will just blend in with everything else. So it's like, pick your poison. Do you
That's
want to
your
get...
first page right there.
Yeah,
It's so black and white.
Yeah, it really
That's
is.
your-
I mean, it really is. You
Now
cannot...
spend it here,
About
do
it,
it
spend it
all.
over there.
Right, you cannot avoid it. You own that building, and you want to keep that program going. The only way to avoid it is to shut down the rec program and demolish the building and walk away like it never happened. And that's not gonna happen, right? You don't want that to happen. Nobody in town, even the people who aren't in favor of a
It can't
rec
happen.
center.
I mean,
don't
the way
want
the town functions, kids-wise, it can't happen.
No, it can't. It just can't, and it means too much to your future. And after, not to compare us to my former employer, but we renovated our ice arena and our swimming pools and baseball and soccer, and oh my God, there were people saying, I love this. This is great. No matter what I do, I have something right here in my own town that I can go to. And the facilities, they were proud of them. They weren't embarrassed by them. It attracted people. People were coming to. Listen, I sat next to people in bleachers, just like I'm sitting here. People didn't know who I was, and they'd say, "This is a great facility. I wish I had one of these in my town. Isn't this cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And I'd never tell them who I was, but I hear conversation like that all the time, and it's a built-in marketing tool that keeps on giving every year. And somebody just made that point. People will come here that don't live here. I always suggest to the selectmen we ought to change the motto to be from the Sunshine Town to Newport, the town that everybody wants to call home, or in parentheses, wants to live close enough to, so that you can enjoy the same amenities, right? So you're gonna spend the money, and that shouldn't be threatening. It's just the way it is. It's like you in every one of our houses. You're gonna put a new roof on one day. You're gonna paint the place. You're gonna redo your driveway. You're gonna redo whatever, etc. It's just how do you want to get it? You want it all at once.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. On Sunday night, in the middle of winter, your furnace blows up and somebody says, well, I can't help you.
I've had that happen.
Not for my usual price. If you want to give me a 20% premium, I'll come and help you. And so it's always more expensive to do it when you're in the middle of a crisis.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
And on maybe a final note, as far as, tax impact and all that, with Hunter here and the Board of Selectmen we've had, the board we have now, we're fairly conservative as to what we're spending money on, getting grants for a lot. And we've had very flat tax impact, steady tax impacts. They haven't been any big peaks or, on the town side. And last year we predicted our tax rate will be going down by 10 cents this year. Talked with Paul, we're on, that's about what it's going to go down on the town side. So as far as looking to the future as to, well, what surprises will there be? You know, on the town side, you know, I think we have enough history that, you know, our tax rate is not gonna jump around. Sometimes on the school side, they can't avoid it because of, you know, whatever comes through from the state or not. But on the town side, I think we're trying to build in a little capacity to allow for, you know, absorbing the cost of putting this center up. So,
And the vast majority of the things that you all see that are going on around town, whether it's road paving or rooftops or sidewalks or whatever else, most of that is either with old, what we call old money. You've already been taxed for it, we're just putting it to work. Or they're from grants. They're not things that are gonna make your tax rate jump. And we're trying to get into a system whereby the, you know, the tax rate does this kind of thing along a gradual, slow kind of growth with inflation, not the peaks and the valleys, because it upsets people when it's a destabilizing, you know, kind of influence. And we're, you know, I've said to the selectmen, you know, my goal when I retire here is to leave the town in a condition that the next person comes along and says, I seem pretty good. It's no big deal. It's just like every other little town. Not a lot of hand wringing and screaming and crying and, oh my God, we need to buy this. We're under duress. We have to buy it because we didn't plan for it and now it blew up and we got to buy it. And who are we going to fire and what program are we going to cut? It just doesn't work. It doesn't yield any benefits for anybody.
all right, so we've got, everyone signed the sheet and so it's around somewhere, Brooke had it or something.
I went back there, there it is here.
Okay, and so at this point, the plan is Hunter will hire a marketing firm and we'll meet in 2 weeks at the rec center.
We're
And
gonna
if
see you
there's any
Monday.
change, we'll get an email on it.
Find one.
A couple of people
What?
at the board
We're
of
gonna
selectmen
find a
just to
firm.
Yeah.
I won't hire him until you all kind of like, all one mind.
Anything else? Any questions, comments?
So is the purpose of meeting at the rec center in 2 weeks, wasn't it to be able to show the firm the rec center?
And I
Yeah, I
think
was gonna say,
it's,
we
you know,
can-
Hopefully.
good for us to
Hopefully.
make sure we've taken another look at it. It's been a while since I've been through there, you know.
Okay.
Come join my exercise class on Friday morning.
We're throwing
That's what I
ideas
heard.
at
You're eligible, you're an older adult.
All right, thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks.
All right.
This is an older adult.
Was she?